Now coming to the read-write memory or the random access memory. So this random access memory is called as a read-write memory because the processor or controller can read the data from this memory as well as it can write onto this memory here. So this RAM is the data memory or working memory of the controller or processor here. So this memory is called as what the working memory because whatever the data has to be processed, so that data is put into this random access memory so that the controller or processor can read from it or write onto this memory here. A RAM is a volatile, meaning when the power is turned off, when the system power is turned off or switched off, all the contents are destroyed automatically. It won't store the data onto this memory. So hence this random access memory is a volatile memory here. A RAM is a direct access memory, meaning we can access the desired memory location directly without the need for traversing through the entire memory location to reach the desired memory positions, that is random access by memory location. Hence it is called as what? Random access memory here. And sometimes it is like a sequential access memory here where the desired memory location is accessed by either traversing through the entire memory or through a seek method here. Example, the magnetic tapes and CD-ROMs are the example for sequential access memory here. Now we'll go the different type of random access memories. So the first type is static RAM, dynamic RAM and NVRAM, that is a non-volatile RAM here. So it can be categorized as the static RAM, dynamic RAM and non-volatile RAM here. Now we'll study about the static RAM here. So what is the static RAM? A static RAM which stores the data in the form of voltage here, and it is made up of flip-flops. And static RAM is the fastest RAM that is available in the market here. Then implementation or this static RAM which is made up of using the 6 transistors here. So out of the 6 transistors, the 4 of the transistors are used for building the latch part of the memory cell and 2 for controlling the access here. Now we'll name these 6 transistors as Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5, Q6 here. Now your Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 are cross coupled inverters, so that are used for building the latch, and Q5 and Q6 they are used for controlling the access here. Now we'll see with the diagram of a static RAM. So this is the simplest representation of a static RAM cell as shown in the figure. It consisting of the 6 transistors Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5 and Q6 here. So in this Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 are cross coupled inverters. In that Q1 and Q2 are CMOS inverters pair, and another Q3, Q4 are CMOS inverter pair here, and Q5 and Q6 which are used to control the SS2 bit lines, that is B and B bar here. Okay, so whenever the data has to be read or write, so the data will be represented by the bit lines. So the data is represented in the form of ones or zeros here. Okay, and a word line which represent the address here. So this VCC is the power supply and this is grounded here. Got my point? Now we'll see the working of the static RAM here. So as we know that the computer works in binary language, so whatever the input we give to the computer will be converted into the form of zeros and ones. Similarly, output generated by the compiler will be in the form of zeros and ones, which then converted into the women understandable language here. Now see, with a simplified circuit, it would be look like this. Okay, so this implementation in its simpler form and can be utilized as a 2 cross coupled inverters here. So these are the inverters. I will name these inverters as I1 and this inverter as I2 here. Okay. Now the four transistors in the middle form Q1, Q2, Q3, 4 or forms the cross coupled inverters. Okay. Now see, we'll see understand how the read and write operation is done onto this static RAM here. Okay. Now bit lines carries logical 1 or logical 0 here. Now consider, now the static RAM is reading the logical 1. Okay. So this logical 1 will be the input through the Q1 transistor. Okay. So now 1 is the input to this inverter I1 and it produces the output as a 0 here. Okay. So this 0 will be the input to the inverter I2 here. Okay. Then this inverter I2 will produce the logic 1 here. Now the data read is 1, logical 1, and the data represented is 1 here. So this is how read operation is done here. So to read this data, so this address line and bit lines are to be turned on here. So how we are going to turn on? By supplying the voltage to this circuit here. My point. And this voltage is sensed by the sense amplifier here. For write operation, whatever data we want to insert into the memory, we will provide it to the bit lines B and B bar. If logic 1 is applied to one bit line called B and complement logic 0 is applied to the B bar here. So this will switch on the pass transistors and bit line voltage will be applied to the inverter circuit. In this way, the inverters of bit lines will be latched in the inverter circuit here. Now going to the limitations of static RAM. Static RAM are low capacity and high cost. Since a minimum of 6 transistors are required to build a single memory cell, imagine how many memory cells we fabricate on a silicon wafer here. So here it means it requires more memory cells to design the static RAM here. Now coming to the DRAM, that is dynamic RAM. So this dynamic RAM stores the data in the form of a charge and they are made up of MOS transistor gates. And advantages of RAM are its high density and low cost compared to the static RAM here. And disadvantage is since the information is stored as a charge, it gets leaked off with time, and to prevent this they need to be refreshed periodically here. So here the DRAM, that is a dynamic RAM, uses the capacitors which indicates the logic 1 or logic 0 here. So the capacitor determines whether the particular bit is logic 1 or logic 0. The presence of a charge in the capacitor indicates logic 1 and the absence of a charge indicates logic 0 here. So at some time, so the charge in the capacitor gets low here. So this will affect the content of dynamic RAM. So hence it requires the refresh periodically here. Then special circuit called DRAM controllers are used for this refreshing operation here. Now this refresh operation is done periodically in milliseconds interval here. Now we'll see with the diagram the dynamic RAM. The following figure illustrates the typical implementation of a dynamic RAM cell here. So this dynamic RAM consisting of MOS transistor and the capacitor here. So this capacitor cell determines whether the particular bit is logic 1 or 0 here. So the presence of a charge in the capacitor represents the logic 1, okay, and the absence of charge indicates logic 0 here. If the capacitor is charged, then it indicates what? Logic 1. If the absence of a charge in capacitor, it indicates 0 here, right? So refreshing is required in dynamic RAM here. Why? Because if suppose consider you are reading the data 1001 here. So this one, after some time, the charge in the capacitor gets low here. So this one will become as a 0. So the read data will be what? 1000. So this will affect with the original data here. So hence it requires refreshing periodically here. So this dynamic RAM is very simple, and as a result it can be densely packed on a silicon chip, and this makes it very cheap here. Two lines are connected to each dynamic RAM cell. The work line and bit line connected as shown in the figure, that is required cell within the matrix can have data read or written on it here. So this MOSFET transistor will act as the gate for the incoming and outgoing data. So whereas the capacitor act as a bit storage unit here. So charge in the capacitor indicates logic 1. So no charge in the capacitor indicates 0 here. Okay. Now coming to the difference between the static RAM and the dynamic RAM. So static RAM is made up of 6 CMOS transistors, whereas dynamic RAM is made up of the MOSFET transistor and a capacitor here. And the static RAM does not require refreshing, but in the case of dynamic RAM it requires refreshing periodically here. Then static RAM is more expensive and dynamic RAM is less expensive here. And the static RAM is fast in operation. Typically access time is 10 nanoseconds, and dynamic RAM slow in operation due to refresh requirement. Typical access time is 60 nanoseconds. Write operation is faster than the read operation in the dynamic RAM here. Now going to the non-volatile RAM. So non-volatile RAM is a random access memory with battery backup. Now we can understand. So this RAM will come up with the battery backup here. So this static RAM and dynamic RAM, it stores data temporarily. When the system gets off, when it is turned off, so the data which is present in this random access memory will be deleted here. Okay. So if I want to back up that data, I will use a non-volatile RAM here. So this non-volatile RAM is a random access memory with a battery backup here, and it contains static RAM based memory and minute battery for providing supply to the memory in the absence of external power supply here. The memory and the battery are packed together in a single package, and the lifespan of NVRAM is expected to be 10 years here. So example, DSJ644 non-volatile RAM from Maxim Dallas is an example of 32 KB NVRAM here. Now the third type of memory used in embedded applications, that is memory according to the type of interface. So the interface of memory with the processor or controller can be various types. It may be a parallel interface. The parallel interface, the parallel data lines from D0 to D7 data lines, these are all the data lines from an 8-bit processor or controller will be connected to the D0 to D7 of the memory here, and the memory density is expressed in the terms of kilobytes, and it may be in the form of the serial interface like I2C, pronounced as I square C. So it is a two-line serial interface used for data storage memory like EEPROM, double EEPROM, and the memory density of a serial memory is usually expressed in terms of kilobits. And another system AT24C512 is an example for serial memory with capacity of 512 kilobits and two-wire interface here, and it may be of a serial peripheral interface with 2 plus n line interface, where n stands for the total number of SPI bus devices in the system here. Now with the next one, the memory shadowing. So RAM access is about 3 times as faster as compared with the ROM access for execution of a program. So from the ROM, read-only memory is very slow, about the 120 to 200 nanoseconds compared to the execution from a random access memory. It takes 40 to 70 nanoseconds here. So here memory shadowing is a technique adopted to solve the execution speed problem in processor-based systems here. In computer systems and video systems, there will be a configuration holding ROM called Basic Input Output Configuration ROM, or simply BIOS ROM here. So this BIOS stores the hardware configuration in formation like the address assigned for various serial ports and other non-plug and play devices and many more here. So usually it is a read and the system is configured according to it during system boot up, and it is a time consuming here. So the memory shadowing is time consuming. So it is a technique adopted to solve the execution speed problem in processor based systems here. Coming to the last part, that is a memory selection for embedded systems. Embedded systems requires a program memory for holding the control algorithms or embedded operating system and applications here. And it requires a data memory for holding data variables and temporary data during the task execution here. And it requires a memory for holding a non-volatile data like configuration data, lookup table, etc., which are modifiable by the application here. And the memory requirement for an embedded system in terms of RAM and ROM, that is of EEPROM, flash and NVRAM, is solely dependent on the type of the embedded system and the applications for which it is designed here. Now we'll see some examples how the memory will play an important role in designing these embedded systems here. So first example I'll consider here is a simple electronic toy design here. So as the complexity of requirement are less and the data memory requirements are minimum in this case. So thinking of a microcontroller with a few bytes of internal RAM and a few bytes of kilobytes of flash memory and a few bytes of EEPROM if required here for designing this system here. So there is no need of external memory at all. And a PIC microcontroller, that is a programmable interface controller device, is used which satisfies the input output and memory requirement can be used in this case here. Now going to the another example, a smartphone device with Windows mobile operating system. I will see how the memory will play an important role in designing this smartphone device with Windows mobile operating system here. So this embedded system requires a minimum 64 MB RAM and 128 MB ROM are minimum requirement for running the Windows mobile devices here. Indeed, we require extra RAM and ROM for running user applications. So while building the system, count the memory requirement so that we won't end up in a situation where we don't have a sufficient memory to install and run the user applications here. Okay. Now going to the summary of memory here. So first we have came across what is memory. Memory is an storage which stores the data and program here, and memory will play an important part of in a processor or a controller based embedded systems. And we came across a different type of memories used in the embedded systems. So first type we have seen the program storage memory. So under this we came across masked memory, PROM or OTP, program read only memory, or one time program read only memory. Then we came across the EEPROM, then EEPROM, then flash memory. Okay, then second type, that is a read write or random access memory. So here we have studied the static RAM, dynamic RAM and NVRAM, that is non-volatile RAM here. Then we came across a memory according to the type of interface, then memory shadowing, and at the last we have seen the memory selection for embedded systems here with the two examples. Thank you for watching this video. Okay, if you are having any doubts or clarification you require, and post your comments in the discussion forum, so there I will reply your doubts and comments. Okay, stay safe, stay home, fight against coronavirus. Thank you.